I know it feels impossible to believe, but it hasn't even been 2 weeks since the force the vote movement failed, and all the Justice Democrats, all the elected progressives, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, Ro Khanna, Cori Bush, they all gave up the veto power that they had in the speaker's race to oust Pelosi as Speaker of the House and to make any type of policy demands that they'd want in return for them voting to confirm the next Speaker of the House, because the majorities were so slim in the House that even though the Democrats had the majority, the corporate Democrats alone did not have the votes to confirm the next Speaker of the House. Just 6 or 7 Justice Democrats not voting for Nancy Pelosi would have kept her from getting the majority of votes that she needed to become Speaker of the House. They could have used that leverage, undoubtedly. It's not even up for debate. They could have used that leverage to demand a floor vote on Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. They could have used this as an opportunity to force a knockdown, drag out, public fight on the floor of the House where everyone would have been forced to be on the record and make clear who they side with, their constituents who need health care in the middle of a public health emergency and economic depression, or are they going to side with the for-profit private health insurance companies and big pharma who are making out like bandits from our current corrupt health system that we have in this country? Are they going to side with their corporate donors over their constituents? They could have forced AOC and all these progressives, they could have forced that fight, and they could have made huge advancements and given the fight for Medicare for all much needed momentum. They could have gotten committee chair assignments. They could have gotten any number of things, but they didn't. And the fact that they didn't, the fact that they rolled over and caved and folded for Nancy Pelosi, got nothing in return, that really, there's a judgment to be made from all the decisions that they've made since they've been in Congress. But from the force to vote moment alone, it tells you everything that you need to know about them. They will flap their gums and pay lip service to the policies that they know are popular, that they all ran on, the policies, that the rhetoric that made them superstars and giant figures among the left in this country. They will pay lip service to those policies all day long. They'll tweet about it. They'll do Instagram live videos about it. But when the time comes to fight for it, they won't do it. When the time comes to have the tough fights and to lay it all on the line and risk everything for the policies that would help the American people, or to take the path of least resistance and go along to get along and not really buck the establishment, go along with what the establishment wants. They made their decision. They're going to side with the establishment anytime it matters. They did it for the CARES Act. They did it when it came to shilling for Joe Biden and telling everybody how you had to go vote for a chief architect of neoliberalism and corporatism. And they did it again when they had the opportunity to force Nancy Pelosi out as Speaker of the House and exercise veto power and lay down a list of non-negotiable demands in order to seat the next Speaker of the House. They could have done that, but that would have bucked the establishment, that would have shaken things up too much, and they know how their colleagues in the Democratic Party would have perceived them after that. So they on purpose made the decision not to do that. And they chose to bullshit us all, bullshit everybody who got them into the position where they are these elected politicians, they are these powerful people in Congress. They decided to bullshit all of us and try to tell us, oh, now isn't the right time to force a vote on Medicare for all, even though it's what they all ran on. It's what they all said. They said it is always we need a vote on it immediately. And they were saying this before the pandemic. But now that we're in a public health emergency, once in a lifetime pandemic, now they're going to come out and tell us, bullshit us, and give us a million and one excuses why it isn't the right time to vote for Medicare for all. So this was a defining moment. And I'm not going to shut up about it. And I think it's doing a great injustice. Anybody who saw them cave like that, saw them fold for Nancy Pelosi and the establishment like that, and then to just do one video and say, what can you do? I wish they would have actually used their power to do something, but they didn't. So, oh well, maybe next time. I think that's an incredible disservice to the conversation. It's a disservice to your audience, and it's minimizing something that was unforgivable. So Brianna Joy Gray on her podcast Bad Faith, the day after, or it might have been the same day, the day of the speaker vote, she did a segment where she was talking about how this was an incredible disappointment and a huge letdown, and it exposed a lot of people on the left who really are who aren't willing to fight for Medicare for all. And instead they're going to keep pushing failed electoral politics and incrementalism as if that's going to get us to where we need to be. And she did an amazing job explaining the anger that people have towards AOC and the people who are still defending her. And she did a better job than I ever could. So I have the clip. It's about 3.5 minutes. But first, y'all already know the deal. If you're able to contribute to the show financially, I have links to Patreon in the About page of my YouTube channel. You can sign up to do monthly subscriptions. And also have a link to PayPal in the About page of my YouTube channel if you feel more comfortable doing a one-time contribution. And those links are in the About page of the YouTube channel, not in the description box of the video. So if you go to my YouTube channel, at the top where it has all the tabs like home and videos and things like that, if you go all the way to the end of the tabs, the last tab there is the About page, and all the links are there, including links to Twitter and Odyssey. And like always, I'm incredibly grateful for all the people who've contributed over the last few months. And you guys have really, it means a lot to me because you guys help me do what I love. And there aren't words to express how grateful I am for that. Now, back to this video. I'm going to play the clip from Brianna Joy Gray, and then I'm going to come back and break it down.
I did it in a job in my life, but I did it because I believed in it. I said, well, if everything that Bernie is saying, if 68,000 people dying every year is unconscionable, hundreds of deaths, preventable deaths every day, people's mothers and brothers and sisters and cousins and lovers, then how can I sit here as an ethical human being and not do this, right? Like not participate. And it's the same with this. It's like, I don't care how long the shot is. If we're going to sit here and tell people that 15 million people in the last year alone, less than that, have lost their employer-based healthcare in a system that was already deeply broken, where we know that if you have insurance, it's no guarantee that you're not going to be bankrupted by common medical ailments. And if we don't just say those things as statistics, if we actually mean that, and we're really thinking about the human lives that are lost, like the stories of, Scott and Joy that were told at the Force a Vote town hall, how am I going to sit there and look at a man who was in front of his computer one day and saw a Facebook message from his kid saying, I've super glued my seatbelt closed and I'm about to drive into a lake and kill myself because I had to go off of my medication and there's suicidal ideation for going off of that medication because I missed a $20 payment on my premium. How am I going to look at that man in the face one day and have a conversation with him and tell him we're fighting for Medicare for all and then be like, I negotiated for some pay-go exemptions for climate change and COVID. But we're gonna maybe get a single payer in California, and then 10 or 20 years from now, maybe we can have it nationally. You know, it doesn't jibe. Like, it doesn't flow. It's not consistent. And we can just be like, fine. Like, if we're just going to be Pelosi's, if we're going to be corporate Democrats and be like, yeah, this isn't even our goal, that's fine. I have almost more respect for that than to give lip service to the exigency of this crisis and then not to behave in an exigent way. And for people on the left to be participating in that, if you have strategic concerns and are saying we should ask for different things, fine, I respect that. If you have strategic concerns and say, I think we should just oust Pelosi and not make any demands, right on, let's do that. I would get behind any of those things. But to defend doing the bare minimum, to defend inaction, to defend, I think they have our best interests at heart and are working at something behind the scenes. I could even defend, hey, I had a secret conversation with them and trust me, they're on it. They can't disclose it for strategic reasons. And they had ample opportunity to do that too. They didn't. They told us, we can't do this because we're holding out for a $15 minimum wage. You know, the animosity, and I'm not saying I have animosity for AOC, but the ire that was focused on her in particular, it's not out of nowhere, and it's not because she's Latina, and it's not because she's a woman. It came because she engaged directly with Justin Jackson and offered up a bunch of excuses for why she didn't want to force the vote, which were kind of superficially on their face, like fake. You know, they weren't credible. They weren't credible excuses. You know, if you're concerned that no one's willing to run against Pelosi, that's a problem. Say more about that. Are you saying that what? Karen Bass doesn't want to be speaker? Barbara Lee doesn't want to be speaker because what? Because they've exchanged what for that? For not running. What are they afraid of losing? What are they getting? And is it personal, or does it inure to the benefit of us?
So you could probably tell at the very beginning of the video, Brianna was kind of emotional. And it's understandable because some people forget that when we're talking about Medicare for all, when we're talking about any of these policies, it's not just an academic exercise, an academic debate over theory and things like that. These are life and death decisions that affect people, millions of people in this country. And the cost of us not doing policies like single payer or Medicare for all, that is going to cost people their lives. And that is going to ruin families. That is going to bankrupt people. And it's not a question of if all those things are going to happen. It's how many times is it going to happen before we get Medicare for all? Before the pandemic even started, our health care system was so bad that 500,000 people were going bankrupt every single year because they couldn't afford medical bills. 68,000 people were dying because they couldn't afford basic health care. Basic health care. The devastation being brought by the status quo and our current for-profit health insurance system. It is impossible to put that into words adequately. Nobody can do it. And I feel like definitely among what's being called now the boutique left, the bourgeoisie of the left, if you will, the people who are doing fine, they are making a lot of rationalizations and saying, we can't do it now. It's not the right time now. We have to wait till we have better numbers, and we have to wait till we win these elections, and it can't be this time, maybe 2024 or 2028. That would be the right time. Like, just know when you're saying that, you're saying, I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to do everything in my power to fight for somebody who needs healthcare right now, to fight for somebody who needs healthcare tomorrow, fight for somebody who might not be able to pay for their insulin, their life-saving insulin next week. And every single one of those people, those are real people. Like this whole thing, this whole forced to vote moment is a slap in the face, because when it was convenient for all these Justice Democrats and people who support them to, including Bernie Sanders, to talk about how existential the healthcare crisis is and how life and death it is, and talk about all the statistics, when it was beneficial to them to get them where they needed to be for their careers, they understood the urgency. And now they're in position of power. They're in a position to make real moves, to make real power moves to get us there. They're telling people to wait. They're giving people bullshit excuses, giving people the runaround, doing mental gymnastics to tell people that right now isn't the time to fight for Medicare. For right now isn't the right time to have a floor vote, a national conversation about transitioning to single payer, or really a government-run healthcare system in the middle of a pandemic and an economic crisis. Now isn't the time to do it. Okay, so you're kind of full of shit then. Because now there will be no time when it is ever needed than in this moment. And if you're gonna tell me how important it is, how life or death it is for people, and then tell me in the same breath, oh, we're not gonna do everything we can to get it in this moment, making the strategic calculation that it would probably be the best time to do it in around maybe 10 years. So 68,000 people dying every year, multiply that by 10, that's almost 700,000 people dying. But I think that's the right time to fight for it. That makes absolutely no sense. And then Brianna makes another great point about people giving them the benefit of the doubt. People saying, oh, I'm sure they're really working on something behind the scenes and it's going to be great. Let's not rake them over the coals and nail them to the cross over this. Even though this was a giant fucking defining moment, let's not nail them to the cross yet, because I'm convinced that they might be doing something behind the scenes that none of us know about and that they will never tell any of us about. But trust me, they're working on something. That's delusional. That's delusional. To believe that, you'd have to be denying all the evidence that's in front of us, that's showing us the direction that they're going in with all of this. And AOC and these Justice Democrats, they're giving, most of them are ignoring us and acting like this position that they're taking doesn't require an explanation. Like they don't have to reconcile that with how it contradicts everything about who they pretended to be this entire time. Most of them are acting like they don't even need to address this. And then when they do, like the example of AOC, they're clearly bullshitting us and their examples aren't adding up. And it is unacceptable, because you were sent there to fight. You were sent there to have knockdown, drag out fights with Nancy Pelosi, with Democratic leadership, with the establishment, to get the policies that you ran on. That was the whole purpose of Justice Democrats. That was the whole purpose of AOC getting the support of left new media and all the many lefties in the country who were donating to her and volunteering for her. The whole purpose of that was so that we have somebody who was willing to risk it and fight for us on policy battles. In a world that made sense, if you believe the shit that you were saying, if you believe that how necessary Medicare for all is, you would pull out all the stops. You would use every tool in the toolbox. You will cross every line and burn every bridge to get Medicare for all. And if everything you everything you tried didn't work, then you just throw your hands up and say, hey guys, I did what I can. Maybe we need maybe I'm not the person to do it. Oh well, maybe somebody else can step in and do it, and somebody else can lead the charge. But I did everything I can, and I wasn't able to deliver. That's the level of commitment that makes sense. But what they're all doing is they're not fighting. they're not doing anything but making excuses for why they can't fight. Oh, we can't. We can't force a vote on Medicare for all because it might fail. The corrupt politicians who are in the pocket of their corporate donors might be so brazenly corrupt that they will deny the public health care in the middle of a public health emergency. So we just not even going to fight for a floor vote on Medicare for all. We're not even going to have the debate. That makes absolutely no sense. Oh, we knew there was going to be a speaker's race since the day that we all came to Congress and voted for Nancy Pelosi the first time over 2 years ago. But we just didn't have another person to run against Nancy Pelosi in the speaker's race. First of all, that excuse is bullshit. But even still, say they were being 100% sincere in that excuse. Oh, we didn't have somebody run against Nancy Pelosi. Whose fault is that? That's your fault. You are there. Again, like I said, you are there to pull out all the stops, to use every tool and every trick you have up your sleeve. And that includes challenging Democratic leadership in leadership races. So if you were there for 2 years and you didn't have somebody to challenge her, you need to explain that to us. But they don't. They just throw out that excuse and be like, it's good enough. And you guys take it or leave it. So Brianna did a really great job explaining the frustration with this inaction and this lack of urgency from the people who claim to be representing the left, the people who claim to be fighting for Medicare for all.